Well, welcome to show number 8. It's a historic show. It's the only 8 I'm going to get for What Are You Playing with your host, Derek. And I have two special guests that I used to podcast with a lot every week. We were pretty good about never missing, and that is Dan and Kyle. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hello, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Hey, it's very nice to meet you. I've heard lots of things about you, so thank you for having us.
Probably nothing good, but that's totally fine. That's
What's a reputation? You know
exactly.
Yeah, what is
Who
what's a legacy?
cares?
What's a legacy?
All right, so I'm pretty I really am actually excited for this show. Not that I'm not excited for the other ones, but I'm excited for this one because there have first of all, both of you are JRPG lovers and RPG lovers in general. And there's just been this year has been absolutely nuts.
It's been crazy
with RPGs and JRPGs. So I told them before I started recording, normally I kind of have a general idea of what we're going to talk about, whether like when I bring people on, sometimes it's new releases or I know what they're playing. I know a couple games you guys are playing, but I don't know them all. So what I wanted to do was just start first and foremost before we jump into like what are we playing. I wanted to ask you guys, what is the most recent game you finished?
Oh wow! Hold on, I have that written
There's
somewhere.
been like an ongoing bit between Kyle and I how we don't play new games right now.
Yeah, I have been in a era of old games lately,
and it could be an old game. It's whatever you
wonderful.
finished last. I document everything I finished.
So the last thing so do I. Yeah, I had to pull up the list though. The last thing I actually finished was the Elder Scrolls Skyrim Dawnguard DLC. There's credits.
Okay.
I count it. That's a finish.
Oh,
the last real game I beat completely, is probably The Witcher 3. I replayed that for like the 5th time.
Awesome. How long did that take you?
This time around, I think like 90 hours. Yeah, it took me a while. Down from my 200 hours in my first playthrough though. So
yeah,
knew what I was doing. I get better every time.
The corners.
Every cycle.
Yeah. All right, cool. That's awesome. Dan, can you think of the most recent game you finished?
Well, the most recent one is the one I just finished yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, which is what I'm going to bring up, as the main thing. But prior to that, I'm pretty sure it was Stellar Blade. I think that was the last thing I fully finished.
Okay, so I knew you were playing it. By the way, I purposely do this. I did start listening to Current Gen's current episode today, and I was like, no, don't listen to it because I don't want to know what they're doing or what I want them to share it with me on the show. So I knew you were playing Stellar Blade because I was on the show a couple weeks ago, but I didn't know you finished it. Okay, so I'm gonna start with you, Dan. Then we'll go to you, Kyle. What are your thoughts on Stellar Blade? Again, you can dive in as deep as you want. You can keep it 2 seconds. I don't care. What were your overall thoughts of Stellar Blade?
I think that it's a really awesome game. I enjoy it a lot. I think it deserves more credit than
I like it a lot.
I like it a lot because of all the dumb all the stuff with the censoring and all that shit. Like that stuff is just so annoying with whatever game it is because it becomes this distraction that then people are like, well, then like I'm not gonna play. Blah, blah. It's like, listen, this is a really fun action game. Is it perfect? No. The platforming is not great. The voice acting is not like amazing, but considering that this was Korean studio, I think it's perfect.
To be fair to the voice acting, because if you were just to play it and be like know nothing about it, or I wouldn't even say play it, like watch a scene, you'd be like, it's very average, right? And I even said that on the podcast, like, it's average. But considering they're not all humans, it kind of makes sense how they talk.
I think if you take into consideration what the actual world is and what's going on,
it's like dolls are talking to each other or robots are talking.
And for a studio like that, your hiring pool of talent is probably not deep. You know what I mean? So just the fact that it was as good as it was, I was like, this is fine. I come from watching really bad anime dubs, so this was better than that.
Yeah, I think it's completely competent. And I don't know if you remember me saying, Derek, that when I played the demo, I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of like, this feels maybe a little too Souls.
That's how
That's
That's how I felt. Yeah.
And I was a little bummed, but then I was just like, all right, like I'm gonna trade. I traded something in. Oh, Star Wars, because I had finished the new Survivor. And I was like, I finished it. I really enjoyed this, but let me trade it in towards Stella, because I actually do want to give Stellar Blade a try, and I got like a sweet trade-in deal on that. Knocked Stellar Blade down to like $40. And yeah, and I was just glad that I bought it because I really enjoyed it. I'm actually going to do a challenge run on stream. I'm going to play it on hard mode with the skin suit only, so you get no shield. So
Nice.
hard mode skin suit.
Okay, I've already considered you the pro gamer of the group. I think if you can pull it off, and this is coming from a guy, I also beat Stellar Blade recently. In fact, if you look at my list, I'm kind of like Kyle, where he was like, "Hey, well, this is even worse than you, Kyle, though, because you're like, hey, I beat like a DLC in Skyrim."
Yeah.
I put
Which,
on
to be fair, is like 25 hours, 25, 30 hours, it's
okay,
a big piece of content.
Well, if you go by hours, I did put about 18 to 20 hours in. But
That's
my
long.
last official game that I beat, this is Derek making up his rules, is I finished a season in college football 25.
It counts, man. I feel like my cheat is if there's credits, I count it. You know what I mean?
So I won the national championship. I went 16-0, and each game takes about 40 to 45 minutes. So, and plus I do some management. So I was like, okay, dude, that was like 15 hours. And I did that really quick because I got hooked on it. But before that, and this is where I would say, I'm like, Kyle, I'm like, the real game I beat is Stellar Blade. I actually rated it a 9. And I kind of felt like how you felt, Dan. First of all, I don't like doing demos unless a demo gives me a reason to do a demo. Meaning, I don't know nothing about the game, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll buy it. This demo is what's gonna sway me or push me away from it, right? Or the main reason I'll actually play a demo is if you give me a reward. If you say, beat this demo, it carries over to the main game, and you unlock so and so, I'll generally do it. Especially if it's a game I'm gonna buy. So when I booted up this Stellar Blade, I actually didn't even research it, so I don't even know if the demo unlocked anything. I don't think it did, but I played maybe
data over, I believe.
Yeah, I played like all the way up until you fight the first like boss. That's not really a boss fight, to be honest with you. It's just like that intro thing. And then I saw the story thing, and then I was like, I don't know, man. I'm gonna buy it because I already pre-ordered this, but I don't know about this game. And then I started playing the game, and I got about 2 hours in, and I was not feeling it. I didn't hate it. I just didn't feel it. And so I walked away from it for months, and then came back to it. And I came back to it, and I shared this on Current Gen. I came back to it through chatting with Rudy, because Rudy came on to do episode 7 with me. We did a spoiler cast for Hellblade. And he was raving about how amazing this game is. Like, and the reason why I played it is because I said I'm not really feeling it. But he's like, "Oh, I would love to come back on your show once you beat it." And I was like, "All right, well, let me see if I actually want to beat the game."
Yeah.
And so then I started playing it, and I don't know, something changed. You know how sometimes you just have moods? I think it was a mood thing, and something changed and flipped, and I was just like, wait, this game's actually legit amazing. Why was I like, what was I not feeling about this? And
For
then
me,
as
it just
kept
wasn't enough
going,
time. I don't know. So for you, it was just the mood. Like it wasn't like, because the demo is like, because I got it up to that boss too, where it's like a cutscene thing, right? Like you fight the boss, but then that happens.
Trying to get you hooked on the story,
yeah.
Good.
And then
I like the beginning of that game.
I basically went right up until when you go to the tap, like you basically the dude gets you and then he drops you off and then you start off in that rainy city or whatever. And like when I was there, just kind of standing there, I was like, all right, I'm liking everything else. The visuals are fantastic. The music is beautiful. And the atmosphere is just really awesome. But yeah, it was just the combat that I was like skeptical on. But when you even like within the first couple hours, I feel like if you equip certain things in the game, it feels a little better, because that's what you do. You can equip some stuff, and then like she like moves a little faster. She'll like do certain moves a little faster and stuff like that. And that's kind of where the character action element kicks in. So
Well,
it's
and
less.
that would actually, as you were talking, I was like, oh, that's why I walked away from it. So I came from, and I know you guys, I know Kyle's not a big Rise of the Ronin fan, and
I liked it fine actually. Yeah, I just it's talk about mood where you're like, yeah, we have to approach a game like at the right time. That's that game for me for sure.
But I'm a legit, and you guys have made fun of me, and I get it. I'm a legit fanboy of that game, right? So, and I get objectively,
love, man.
Absolutely. I objectively can see the flaws. Like I've never seen somebody write about it and me be like, "You're just a fucking idiot who doesn't get it." Like there's no arrogance there. I'm just like, I wish you would give it more of a shot because I actually think it's this, this, and this. But it's a game I really love. The reason I brought it up is because I went from that game, which I put a gazillion hours into Stellar Blade, and here's why I was like, oh, I'm not feeling Stellar Blade. So when you play those type of games, those Souls type games, which by the way, Stellar Blade, I don't know. I don't feel
it's a hybrid.
Really
I call it a hybrid game.
We've talked about this on the podcast. It is I would call it a hybrid. I think people like to use the term Souls Light now. I hate all this industry jargon.
I think it's way harder than a light.
Well, and I don't even know if there's enough like Soulsy stuff to call it a Souls game because that becomes nebulous.
You got to camp and that's it.
You got to camp and like when you sleep there, like all the enemies come back. Is that like that's kind of the most Soulsy thing about it? I guess.
I think honestly, it's if you have a camp, if enemies come back, and if your difficulty's hard. But this game also has levels of difficulty. Sure. So that's where it kind of they don't go, you have to play it at our level and there's no adjustments. Like they're like, hey, if you're having a rough time, play it on, I think it's story mode. Then there's like a normal and then there's like hard. I will say this, the game is insanely difficult and it gets really, really hard as you go towards the latter part. Because even when I was going through the game, I was like, I've only, because they show you all the enemies you meet and fight, and I was like, I've only beat like 2 elite bosses, and I've been playing this game for like 20 plus hours. And then the game's like, oh yeah, you've only met 2 of them. Boom, 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 boom. And I was like, okay, all right. But anyways, what I was trying to say is the combat in those games like Rise of the Ronin or even like From Software, when you hit an attack button and you're locked on somebody, the game auto pushes your character towards that character. Yes, you can technically miss, but most of the time you're not going to miss. Stellar Blade doesn't do that. Like I can be locked on an enemy and be 2 feet away, and if I hit the attack button, she's going to just swing where she's at. She's not going to lunge towards them and be like, okay.
Until you unlock that ability. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But you have to choose to do that. Just hitting the regular attack button. On most Souls games, if you just hit the regular light attack or heavy attack, it's going to go towards that enemy and try to strike them.
There's a guiding nature to it, yeah.
You get what I'm saying. So when I started playing this, again, it's just a nitpicky thing, and I came from that game, and I was like, this is freaking annoying. Why is she not moving? Why is she just standing there going like that?
It's an adjustment. It's an adjustment. You got 2 different games.
And that's more character action game, I would say. Having to having to be on on the person, or closing.
Yeah, it's all about like spacing, and then like Dan said, you unlock a move or at least one of the moves that I used a lot. Where you hold down triangle and she lunges at shoots at him real quick and does like a strong attack, and then you can add combos onto it. That's what I liked. As you start branching out and you keep leveling your character up, you keep adding all these moves. So it has some Sekiro to it as well, because to really level up your attack power, you have to beat bosses. Which is one of the things Sekiro is like, hey, you wanna get stronger? Well, you got to beat a boss, and it's like, well, wait. In Souls games, if I am struggling, I like to get more powerful and then fight the boss. Sekiro's like, sorry, I mean, you can unlock other abilities, but you're not going to get actually stronger. Same thing with this game. This game's like, there's other stuff you can do, but for the most part, to level up your attack power, you have to beat bosses. You have to advance and move forward in the game. But anyways, it was a pleasant surprise. Once I got past my little oh, this is kind of annoying. I don't like this. And I came back to the game, and what I would consider, and I've said this plenty of times when I've talked to you guys about other games, I like to not just blame games for everything. It's very rare that I'm gonna dislike a game. Like it's either just not my type of game, which that doesn't most of the time I just didn't even try it, or I've tried it and I'm like, no, this is not my type of game. Like you guys might, I'm not saying you will, bring up No Man's Sky. They just had a big update, and when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, maybe now I'll like this game
Yeah.
because this more looks like Starfield, and I really got into Starfield after actually I quit the podcast. Because before I quit the podcast with you guys, I was like, you guys are overrating Starfield. Now I'm
No,
like,
man. Drink that
Starfield.
Kool-Aid. It's so good.
So I was like, No Man's Sky, the new update kind of looks like Starfield, and then I booted up and I was like, no,
Nah,
no,
it's still a tree puncher. Yeah, it's still a tree
it's
puncher.
just not my,
You have
it's
to,
not
like,
my
get
game.
there. Yeah, you have to get there.
Yeah. So, anyways, so Stellar Blade started out that way, but it ended up being I rate all my games, so I gave it a 9 out of 10, and I absolutely love it. I think it's worthy, and I jumped in immediately into New Game Plus.
Yeah.
I just got to Zion, so I've
Yeah.
done everything up into Zion, and it's just a blast to play.
Yeah, and there's like actually more stuff you can unlock in New Game Plus, which is really cool. It's not just simply going through the story. You can actually get more outfits, and there's some other, I think, ability.
Retro
Well, just
unlockables
even
and
like
that stuff
your
on the battle
abilities.
pass. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It's
more,
great
like,
game mechanics. Yeah.
Exactly. I like that, and I think Final Fantasy 16 did it too, where it was like they released the game, and when the game launched, they had already had, excuse me, New Game Plus built into it, and
It's
they'd
a Final
already had it
Fantasy
set
mode.
up. Yeah, where they were like, all this stuff is in the Final Fantasy mode. Same thing with Stellar Blade. It's like, hey, once you beat the campaign, New Game Plus is there for you, and it's not just you carry over everything. You do carry over everything, but you also can unlock new abilities. Like you were saying, there's certain costumes that you can't. There's multiple endings, which, by the way, I found
Yeah.
the story actually ended up being fun and good.
Yeah.
I actually ended up caring about the characters by the time I had to make decisions, which they do make you make decisions which alter and they significantly alter the ending. It's not just
Yeah.
your color palette is now blue or something stupid like that with everybody made fun of Mass Effect 3. It's like, hey, everything that you've built and know from this world is going to be completely altered. Characters, without spoiling it, obviously, characters that maybe you loved, didn't like, now you like them less or you like them more based off your decisions because it completely changes everything. But it was what I would call a nice surprise for my 2024, and it's easily in my top 5 so far.
I
Of
thought it was
games
a
so
fun
far.
sci-fi story. It wasn't
It's
anything
good.
like I've never seen
Nothing
before, but I thought it
exactly,
was.
but
Yeah, sometimes
it has its
execution's
lore.
everything, you know?
Yeah, exactly. If it makes you feel like, oh, okay, so like you really are doing something for like humanity, like you're doing like something, you're building towards something, and it actually matters because there is this like entity that like is being framed in a certain way, and you're like, oh, okay, well, f them because because of X, Y,
I
Z.
also
So
liked that because I don't know if you guys saw my post, but like it was not this past Saturday, but like the Saturday before, I literally did nothing. I just gamed all day. And the game
nice.
I mainly played, I think I had just beat like Persona 5,
Mm.
and then I immediately jumped into Stellar Blade, and I played 12 hours straight of Stellar Blade that Saturday, and not exaggerating at all, did nothing but side content. Did not do one
A
single
lot
That's
of
main
stuff in that
awesome.
mission.
game.
Yeah, that's
A lot of
awesome.
stuff in that game.
And I'm not going to sit here and say all the side content's interesting.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
But it all kind of like as you keep doing it, it kind of stacks on. They take you from meeting these characters that you think you're just going to do one stupid quest for and then move on with your life, and they go, "Oh, thanks for doing that one. Can you do this one? Do that one?" And it becomes more personable, and then by the time the game plays out, some of that stuff that you did mattered, not only to like the story, but also to like some of the stuff you unlock for your character. Like you end up benefiting from doing some of these side quests. So I really thought that they did a good job with the side quests. Again, not all of them were interesting, but all of them had, or most of them, I would say, had a nice payoff.
Yeah, that's kind of where the RPG, like almost like RPG elements kick in. Like you're doing these quests and you're actually getting some things that benefit like your stats, because there's not really like stats, but you know you're getting items to unlock things to be stronger and everything.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
Before we move on, two things. Kyle, did you play Stellar Blade at all? And
yeah,
how
I put
far
about
did you
6
get?
I put about 6 hours into it. I really like everything about it except the platforming, which was like a hard stop for me. And that was a mood thing. Like at that time, I didn't feel like dealing with the platforming. There may be a time where I have a lot of patience for it in the future. So, you know, it's one I want to double back onto because Dan brought up all the points. Like the music's outstanding, the combat's great, the setup. I really like the sci-fi, you know, story of it all and everything like that. It's got near automata vibes, not just because it's a female android, but because of just the context of the story and being on a dilapidated Earth with like seemingly no, you know, that needs to be saved or healed or something. You know, I like all that stuff. So I have nothing bad to say about it, and everyone championing it. I'm like, yeah, it's about time we get like a, I don't know, an underdog. Is that fair to say? Like getting so much hype.
Because the studio hadn't made anything big budget.
No,
we gotta celebrate the little guys, man. Like this is someone's first game or whatever. Like this, it's crazy to look at. Like it's such a beautiful game. So
it kind of reminds me, and I'm only talking like quality. I'm not saying they're the exact same game, although they do have some similarities. Liza P last year.
Oh sure.
Like I played that game, I beat it back to back, so it kind of hooked me the same way I'm talking about Stellar Blade. There's a lot of like, if you can't tell, there's a lot of like, I love this game so much, it's so special to me. That's what Liza P was like. It was just like, holy shit, this game's so freaking good. Well, that developer hadn't made anything ever, and for them to come
what's with these freshman developers knocking it out of the park,
and they're all Japanese too. So they're amazing. I need them. I need
those Asian developers making an amazing.
Well, and Liza P had a similar thing where there was a lot of cheerleaders. It was a lot of like games journalists, you know, to use that horrible word, like favorite game. Like I love this game. More people should be playing it or whatever. I know Michael Huber from Easy Allies is like it's his favorite game ever now. You know, so.
And it's like an amazing game. I'm not going to talk about it too much. I don't want to bore you guys. We want to move forward, and I want to get to you, Kyle. But like, it's an amazing game, and then when you beat it and you watch like the cutscene that's going to lead into whatever they do in the future, and you're like, oh, this thing just got way, way, way cooler. Like this universe is now one of the coolest ones. Just the way they ended it, it was so freaking good.
Oh wait, Liza P or Stellar Blade?
Liza P.
Oh, okay.
So I heard that. Yeah, I heard that it had. Yeah.
So even if you never intend to play the game, but you know that it's based off of Pinocchio, it's worth going and checking out like the ending cutscene. And even if you want to do like a story explained and then find out what the cutscene is, so you know what the story is, I would highly recommend it just because I think it's super freaking cool the way it plays out.
I'll check that out.
But yeah, so anyways, I brought that game up because I was like, that's what Stellar Blade is this year is for me from Liza P. It's this freshman new developer kind of in a way. I know they did mobile games before, coming out and creating. To me, these games are not easy to create because yes, they're action RPGs, but we're talking about you have to nail down the balancing of making these difficult games where, let's be honest, Souls fans are snobs. I mean, some of them are nice, but they're snobs. They're like,
it's a snobby, fandom.
You didn't balance this correctly, and I'm one of them. I mean, I just yelled at From Software about the last boss in the DLC. I mean, I didn't yell at them. I only talked to you guys.
You beat it pre-update, didn't you?
Yeah, but I yelled. I was like, "This boss is bullshit. It's just terribly designed." You know, I got real uppity, and that only came from I've played so many of your games. You shouldn't do it this way. You know. But anyways, so it's a very difficult genre or style of game to create. So again, for these two developers who are kind of newer to it, to be able to push out, for me personally, of course, I'm only speaking, two of the best games in the last 2 years is pretty awesome. But that's enough about me. Kyle, before we get into like what you guys' main games are and why you're on the show, what are you playing? Give me a little bit more on The Witcher 3. First of all, what got you to go? I know you've played it 4 times. What got you to go, I want to play it a 5th time?
God, it's like one of my favorite games of all time. And literally it was beating Cyberpunk 2077 for the upteenth time. I was like, let's just keep on playing CD Projekt Red stuff. And I wanted to get to the DLC because I've never played the DLC except for that one time when it first came out. So two major expansions that I've only seen once. Didn't feel right to just go straight into them. So I was like, yeah, let's just, let's hook up with Yennefer again for the 5th time because that's the right choice canonically.
Yeah.
I'm still a Trish. I'm a Trish girl.
Why not all of them? Why not all of them?
No, and that game just whisks me away in a way that few games can. Much like your Skyrims or your other big, giant, dumb, huge fantasy RPGs. It's just easy if I want to be somewhere for a little while. If I want to be busy, those games are pretty easy ones to lean on. And Witcher 3 just rocks. And we got new Witchers coming out. Like it's happening soon. I think those projects are underway faster than we think they are. I just want to be ready, I want to keep the hype alive.
I watched a video about it, actually, and I think there's some news that came out that they just announced that they shifted over. I want to say they have 600 employees working on the new Witcher game. Yeah. It's Witcher 4, but it's not. It's a new trilogy, which is, I didn't know. I knew they were making a 4th game. I didn't know they were making a new trilogy.
It's the start of a new trilogy.
Yeah, so I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And then is this going to be original though, or off of the books? Because I mean, obviously,
even Witcher 3, 1, and 2 are all original. If you really want to,
okay.
Yeah, those aren't based off the books. I think they lift some stuff from the books. Sure. Obviously, the backstory, but some of the stories that are in there, I think, make their way into the games.
Characters and.
But yeah, it's more the characters, exactly.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I don't know what they're doing with this new trilogy. I know it's not Geralt because that was supposed to be like his ending once we beat, what was it, Blood and Wine?
Blood and Wine's a pretty good send off.
Ciri, right?
Maybe, but I heard it's not going to be Ciri either. I heard
that's what I was trying to say. I feel like it's like
they showed the emblem of what house is going to be represented. What what fighting style or class? There's the School of the Wolf, the School of the Cat, the school. They have a whole bunch of them, and I forget what it was, but it's not the wolf this time. So Ciri would be the wolf. Or her emblem would be a swallow, and it wasn't either of those, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And if it was a swallow, then it's probably a Ciri game. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited for that, and we're getting the Witcher 1 remake and the new engine and stuff like that. So it's talk about a game that needs an upgrade. So
that's actually going to be
Witcher was just on the mind and in the heart. I had to replay it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one of my go-to games that whenever I get a new monitor or something like that, I'm like, let me see how The Witcher looks on it. I was just
waxing poetic about this on the other podcast. I was like, guys, this is still one of the best looking games out there. It is, and the new update, with those PS5 graphics, I'm sure the PC got a major boost as well. It is just the most magnificent looking game still. It's so big. The open world is so huge, and much like your Skyrims and your other Bethesda games, all the little utensils on the table are loose items that whenever you shoot your force powers at it, they fly everywhere. So it's there's a lot of technological stuff going on in that game that's really sophisticated. It shouldn't look that good. It's insane. It's insane that it looks that
Bethesda,
good.
Get your shit together. If they can make it look that good and it works,
I'll take Roach being on a house every once in a while. You know what I mean? Way over whatever Bethesda's doing over there. So
All right, awesome. Well, I'm glad you went back to. I think yes, I've only beat that game twice. I didn't do what you did because I went ahead and went, hey, I've only beat the DLCs once, so I'm gonna jump back in, but I'm gonna just jump into the DLC. So I actually started. It's not Blood and Wine, but what is the one? The cold. It's the heart one. Stoneheart.
Right?
Something Stoneheart.
Yeah. I just started that, so I'm in the first couple missions of that, and I'm like, oh, I love this story.
I'm at the party or whatever, or something like that.
Nice.
But I'll be honest with you, and I'll talk about it a little bit. I've got so much I'm playing, and then I'm repeating stuff. I'm doing what you're doing, just a little different. I'm like, oh, I should move on to this. Let's play Stellar Blade again. All right, stupid.
I'm doing a lot of that right now. Yeah.
I should be doing this, but let me
I
buy
have
another
a lot
game.
of new games to play right now, and I am just seeking comfort and nostalgia.
Old games.
All right, so let's talk current games. We'll start with Kyle, and then we'll go to you, Dan, because I think I know what your main current game is. It's a chronicle of some sort, I would imagine.
It's indeed a chronicle. Indeed.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start with Kyle. What is your main game? Again, old, new, I don't care. What is the main game that you're playing right now?
My main game I'm playing right now is the one I will not shut up about in current gen. The group.
So I guess right.
That's Trails Through Daybreak.
There it is.
Man, this game is killing me. I can't see what's going on there. Oh, did you get it? Is that it?
I was trying to surprise you.
You're activating active camouflage, right?
It's trying to break in, but it's like I can't do it.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I can't. There we go.
You got it on the right system, man. I really wish I got this on handheld. I'd be 10 times further than I am right now through it. Especially, I got done being sick. I could have been in bed, sick with the flu for like 4 days playing this game. I'm so mad at myself. And the game is just not technically. It's not a great looking game. It's an indie RPG for the most part. I don't want to say indie, but like A or AA at best.
Yeah.
Well, before we jump in on this game, because I do want you to talk about it, obviously, I wanted to ask you, what's your history with the franchise? Because I know Trails is... Go ahead.
You and I have talked about this before, where it's like, we want an in. I want an in where I can get my hands on this franchise. I played Trails Through the Sky way back in the day when it came out. I heard all the buzz. Everyone's like, this is the greatest turn-based RPG to come out in the last 20 years or whatever. And this was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And that game is very good. It's very, very, very good. For whatever reason, I'd never played Trails Through the Sky 2 or 3. Cold Steel then came out. I played the first one of that, loved it. For whatever reason, didn't play 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I kept on touching base with the series often through the years, but never quite committing, and I don't know why. I have no good reason to. And then it just became, there were so many ins, there was so many this, so many that. I just didn't even know where to start anymore, and I didn't want to go back and play Cold Steel again so I could get to 2. And finally, this game comes out. Actually, a couple years ago, they started a new trilogy, the Crossbell trilogy. I didn't get into that one either. I kind of paused on that, didn't even start any of those games. But then this one came out. I just really liked the look of the main character. This is Trails Through Daybreak. I really liked a lot of the trailers I was seeing. And the glimpses that I got of the combat system, I was like, oh, they're trying something a little new here, it looks like. I'm going to go all in on this one. And I'm so glad I did. It immediately hooked me. And I don't know, did you play the demo at all, Derek?
A little bit. I tried it on the PS5, and that's
what the demo does not do a very good job.
PC.
It does not do a good job of just getting you into it. There's a lot of
it takes a little bit.
I really wanted people to play the demo so they could get their eyes and hands on the combat system. Because I'm telling you, there's nothing like this combat system. Yes, there are elements from a lot of different things that are blended together to make this combat system. But it has everything. You can do it all real time if you want to, with dodging and quick, character action type of stuff or whatever. Limited until you either break or stun a character, and then you can initiate a turn-based mode, and then you start with a turn advantage. So they're either stunned or whatever. You do extra damage, you do onslaught damage and all that stuff. But also there's all these other elements like Bravery Default, where you can stack up a bunch of special bars, cash them in to make all your powers or moves better, use specials and yada yada, and knowing when to do that and when to use a special to get an extra bar to fill that one up too, and spreading that across all your characters. There's so much going on, and that's 3 or 4 mechanics in this what feels like 20 mechanic combat system. Every chapter I go through, there's something new that comes up. There became a transformation mechanic where sometimes in the heat of the battle, your character will rage out and turn into this thing. I don't want to be too spoilery here. And it's a game mechanic that other characters in the game can do too. So that's kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which Derek and I really loved from last year.
It's the greatest JRPG ever.
It's the greatest ever, yeah. So now there's flavors of that coming in and everything like that. And just the synergy of all these mechanics, because too many mechanics in a game can bog it down. You know what I mean? Sometimes I just want a system to work in the way that it works. And I don't want all these hurdles and stuff like that. There's no hurdles in this combat system. Everything just feeds into each other. There's a lot of synergy. It just feels so good to play. Now, this game is also a lot like Persona, because this game's not just nonstop like random battles and like, battling. There's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of walking through town and hanging out with like your social links, if you want to use that term. There's a lot of going gift shopping and buying gifts and getting the right gifts for people, so that, like, you can increase their bars and fill those bars up, get that serotonin drop a little bit whenever you're filling those bars.
Question for you on that. Like, why doesn't any of my real life friends ever have gifts ready for me for?
I don't know, man.
Our social linking.
Yeah, right. I'm still waiting for that.
Because I keep playing these Persona games and I keep buying gifts for people, and I'm like, where are the people in my real life that are just like, hey, Derek,
showing up.
We're gonna hang out and eat at a burger place, and I also got you a gift.
I know you like endless ramen bowls. Let's. I
think that needs to be a new gameplay mechanic: is you getting gifts.
Yeah. Right. And you going, this is not to my liking, or whatever.
Yeah.
Negative points.
Yeah. Exactly.
Very good though.
I've heard you talk about this game, and let me start by this. And I'm not like brown nosing or anything like that. I don't really do that, but like, when Kyle says he likes a game, I generally listen. And the reason I say that is because I feel like him and I are very, for the most part, positive gamers. I'm not saying Dan's a hater or anything else, but like, we pretty much like almost everything from every genre.
I'm genre
we don't always agree on everything, but most of the time, if Kyle says, Derek, you should check out this game, I don't go, sure, okay. I go,
I think you and I come from a very similar place of giving everything a chance, like a real fair shake. Yeah.
Exactly. So I started watching stuff because I'm similar to you in that when I bought the PS Vita, one of the cool games that came out that like immediately interested me was, and I didn't have any, anything with this franchise, but I was like, this game looks cool. This JRPG looks cool. So I bought Cold Steel on it.
Yeah.
And I played a lot on my Vita. And that was when I was like, I always had in my brain, I like this franchise. Even though I had never really played any of them all the way through, I was like,
sure,
this is a franchise I'd like to play. I would like to play. And then Kyle started talking about this game, and then I started doing a little bit of research, and I was like, oh, I could buy this game and not have to play all these other games and still enjoy it, and it's starting its own new thing. All right, I'm on board. And so I started shopping for deals. Well, when I started shopping for deals, I actually found deals on all the Cold Steel games. So I bought 1 and 2 for $10 a piece, which is a steal, by the way, because even when they're on sale, they're not $10.
Those games retain their price. Yeah,
they do.
Yeah,
they put them on sale all the time, but they're still always expensive.
So it is one I keep threatening to go to. So
so I am gonna start Cold Steel. I already did. I'm gonna start Cold Steel in my handheld on PC. I have the second one on PC as well. 3 and 4 I bought on the PS5, but that's only because it was on sale. It wasn't on sale on PC. They were bundled together, and I got both for $30. So for $50, I got the first 4 games.
That's great.
Exactly. So here's why I did this. Because I'm doing it with Persona too. Like, I beat Persona 5. It took me 7 years, but I did it. And I'm doing the same thing. And I'm doing it with Persona 3. And that's like the way I'm knocking out JRPGs is like, pick one, target that one you want. You don't have to play it from beginning to end. Just play it until you're done with it. Then come back to it and play it some more. But I try to stay pretty consistent because you don't want to forget the game.
Yeah.
And that's the tactic I'm going to try. I'm not saying I'm going to be able to do it, but that's the tactic I'm going to try to do now with Cold Steel. Because after watching a ton of videos of people talking about this franchise and not only talking about how it's fun to play, but their main thing that they talk about is like the story, the characters are amazing. And I'm like, well, I ended up really, really loving Persona 5. I'm really, really loving Persona 3. So even though I call myself like a gameplay guy, because, I love all the FromSoft games and I'm more into that, when it comes to JRPGs, even with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, yes, the gameplay was amazing, but what really sucked me in was I love the universe. I love the characters.
I wanted those crazy kids to fall in love so bad. I wanted it so bad, Derek.
And then the story just kept getting better and better and more interesting to the point where I not only beat the game, but when they dropped the expansion, day one I was in the expansion and I beat the expansion, which is not something I normally do. So my tactic is to do the same thing with this franchise. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, But you've got me so sold on this bad boy. I definitely am going to jump into it next. How many hours are you into this one?
I'm about 20 hours into it. And it says that
Yeah.
I'm at like the PS5 does that counter. Like how far do we think you're into the campaign? It's at 22%. So like I'm on track to beat it at like 60, 70 hours, so which is about the length.
I think that's
on
what
how long to
most
beat.
of them are about.
Yeah,
50
it's
to
not
60
ridiculous
hours.
like Persona 5, which deserves every hour that it has, but boy, that's a long game.
It's like 2 RPGs.
I don't want you to cut anything out of that game, but also come on,
Well, it's weird playing Persona 3 because I'm like,
Persona 3 is so streamlined compared to 5.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
I'm like, I feel like I'm advancing way too fast. Like, am I doing something wrong? I don't feel like I feel like this game's going.
I got like 40 hours into Persona 3 and I was already in November. I'm like, this can't be right.
Yeah.
But you know what else is cool about the Trails series is, which is another big hook for me, is that it's a consistent, ongoing world, not story. Obviously all the stories are canon and matter, but like that world is the same world that it was when you were in the first one. Maybe some time has passed and stuff like that. And I just don't feel like we get that a lot in games. We're talking 9, 10, 12 games. I don't know how many games are in the series. 15? I don't know. It's a lot of games.
I have no idea.
And it all takes place in the same world. Final Fantasy, you might have a sequel that takes place in that world, but it's a sequel. Usually they move on to something else, There's just East is another one where it's like that's the same character, same world, and that's been going on for a while. But I just don't know a lot of games that have been going on this long with this many entries that just kind of plant their feet, Yakuza, I guess, just plant their feet and like, hey, we exist in this world, And I like that a lot because that means the world building is so good. The terminologies are so confident. So when people are talking in their in-world jargon, you kind of get it, because it doesn't sound like nonsense. It's a language or words that have been spoken for years now across multiple entries. And if you have a passing knowledge of this stuff, like orbaments and all these words and jargon and stuff like that, like you get it already because it's been around and established for so long. And that's a learning to me.
All the way in the beginning, and now all these years later,
everything just builds off of it, and
you must love that, right?
Like I absolutely love it as a world building story guy, and like they're talking about, hey, I had a character who's like, I'm going over to Crossbell. I didn't play that last trilogy that just came out, which is the Crossbell trilogy. But I know that term because I know that those games exist, so it's just like even that where it's just like I don't really know what you're talking about, but like I'm familiar, and that's
what is that one even called? I don't even think I've heard that.
Trails through Reverie or Trails through Azura, Trails through I forget what the other one is. Yeah. Which those games are excellent too, from what I hear. But
I'll be buying them too.
All that stuff, and even in this game, even though I don't know when it's happening, apparently characters from other games are showing up in this game. They have no bearing on the plot. It's just kind of like when Captain America shows up in Thor's movie. You're like, hey, there's that guy. You know what I mean? Like he has no bearing to what's going on in Thor's movie, really, but he's there just to look cool and do a scene or whatever. And like, so there's a lot of that going on too. So if you have played a lot of these games, there's going to be a lot of aha moments for you. But if you haven't played any of those games, you're just kind of going, hey, look at this cool new character on the scene. He's really cool. And he's just, he's doing cool stuff. And everyone seems to know him, as a person who's done something of accolades, and that's cool. I just really like how established this franchise feels. And Dan and I were talking about this. I just really wish this game had the budget for and not that it doesn't like rise to the occasion or rise to like its potential or anything like that. But boy, if it had like the budget of like Final Fantasy or something like that, these would be considered the greatest JRPGs of all time, hard stop. But the budget's not there, so not everything is voice casted. Not everything is pristine and beautiful with lots of HDR effects and pristine textures or anything like that. It's a very, very, very simple art style, but still very cool. A lot of the character designs are awesome. There's a lot of moments where I'm like, oh, she's cool, or oh, he's cool. It reminds me of Tales. Like a Tales game lives and dies off of its cool cast. It's not really the story you're playing Tales games for.
Yeah.
But like you're there for the cool characters and how cool they are and how cool they act, and like you get that in spades in this game. And this is the first of what I'm assuming is going to be a trilogy. Sometimes they go on a longer, like Cold Steel. So like it's not in any rush to tell some big world-ending story. So this game is just letting me breathe in this world and just hang out with people and see cool things. And like your character is kind of a fixer for the underworld, not really on the side of good, not really on the side of bad. So that's alluring. The game is all about the underworld and how like the underworld works outside of the confines of the authority, which is like the guild and the bracers and stuff like that. You'll know what all these terms are when you play the game, you know, but just imagine they're different guilds of authority. It's just interesting. So the game looks kind of bright and cute and fancy and stuff like that, but really it's kind of a dark story, and there's been a lot of cool deaths and stuff like that. You meet a cool character, maybe they die. I don't know, you know. So it's like
that was what I was going to ask you is what, because you're pretty far in. Like, what's your thoughts on the story?
The story is it's MacGuffin heavy, and I don't say that as a criticism. Like we're after a thing, and there's 8 of these things, and maybe all 8 of these things, like the Infinity Stones, if you will, if they get collected together, maybe there's a world-ending possibility or whatever.
Okay.
But you don't really know that for sure yet. It's all kind of conjecture and stuff. So really, the thing is that like the MacGuffin leads you to a place where you meet cool characters. And it's kind of like Dragon Quest in that regard, where the main story is there, but it's really about the vignette stories. It's really about the mini stories or the stories in the stories as you go through the story, if that makes sense. Persona is really good about this too. Yeah, the journey, exactly. Persona, Witcher, all these games that we talked about today, maybe even Stellar Blade, kind of have that like stuff where it's like, hey, this is giving me more input of what's going on in the greater world with these characters and everything like that. And like the story is secondary, but it's not a snooze. I want to know what's going on with these MacGuffin devices, you know. But really, I'm distracted by how cool this chick is who just came in and saved the day, or a character who just showed up who's literally a phantom thief. That's her name, Phantom Thief. She just looks like On.
Sure.
She throws a calling card at you after she fights you. It is literally punching up at Persona. And like, how do you not love that? You know?
Sure.
Like, I just absolutely love that.
Didn't see that coming.
Didn't see it coming. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So this game just has a lot to give, man. And I think like the combat is so outstanding, but there's a balance there. You're doing plenty, just like Persona, where you're really living in a world and occupying a space for a little while, and then the combat comes, and it's kind of like a, you know, phase on, phase off type of thing. And I think that balance works really well because I'm always so excited to get to the combat, but I'm always excited to have that break to like get those story moments too right afterwards. Yeah. And that balance is really hard to pull off, and I think this game kills it. You know.
Perfect. Awesome.
I'm excited for more people to play it, man. It's such a great game.
I'm definitely gonna add it to my list of games that I keep dabbling in. But I like I said, I didn't just buy these games because I was like, hey, I should spend money. Like I was like, hey, you've been talking about this for years. Let's just do it. You did it with Xenoblade. You've done it with Persona. Let's do it. Like you do, because the way I used to be, is I used to buy like every JRPG. Like if it looked cool, I just bought it. And then I would play it for a few hours. And then I would not beat any of them because I was like, JRPGs aren't my games. Like if I buy God of War,
oversaturating yourself and burning yourself out. Yeah, I do that too. Yeah, that was.
So I think the way I was explaining it, the way I have now mentally sold it to myself, I've given myself hope. Because if you go on like how long to beat and you look at some of these games, you're like for instance, let's use Persona 5, especially Royal Edition as an example. So I got like 40 plus hours into the PS4 version. Then Royal Edition comes out, and I'm told by everybody, just stop playing the PS4 version.
Which is
jump
the most
on Royal.
Thing to hear.
Yeah. So I'm like, dude, you want me to start over? Okay, I'll do it. I'm just gonna do it, right? Because I really wanted the redhead to be my girlfriend, and she ended up being kind of lame personality-wise. So she was still attractive, but she was kind of annoying. So I was like, I don't want to be my girlfriend.
Really solid female characters.
It was hard competition. Yeah, for sure.
I ended up going with I'm pretty sure what almost everybody went with. I went with my blondie.
I'm great. I like On. Yeah.
I went with Futaba.
I ended up going with like 3 girls, but the one I ended up not breaking her heart on Valentine's Day was the blonde. I'm forgetting her name, Anne or whatever.
On, yeah. Futaba, to would say what Dan was saying is, she's the one I relate to the most. You know, introverted, just wants to stay in and play games all day. I'm like, you're great.
yeah, absolutely.
You're scared of outside. Same, girl. Yeah, me too. We can stay in and have dates. Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's just the chipping away at those games, and I can walk away from. Like I walked away from Persona 5, and thank God for modern day YouTube and internet, because if this was 20 something years ago and I walked away from these games, no, I'm not recovering. I'd be like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know how the mechanics work. I don't know where to go in the story. I don't know what I'm doing. Now I can be like, all right, how do I get to this?
People make videos that are just like, so you're getting back into Persona. Here's the things you need. Like, there's actually videos made for that. Yeah.
So I do think that Trails will end up being. I'm gonna start with Daybreak because it's the most modern, just to play it and have fun. Plus, you sold me on like, Derek, you gotta play the gameplay, so I'm gonna play that. But I am also going to play Cold Steel at the same time because I think I'm gonna enjoy.
Awesome, man. I love that first game so much. It's such a sin that I never continued those games.
And that was the thing while you were talking and Dan was agreeing with you. And this is younger, Derek. This is probably, when I was in my 20s, and I remember like getting upset that Final Fantasy games were always starting something new, because I wasn't thinking in terms of business, because in business now my mind's all about business, so I'm like, oh yeah, you would never want to continue a story because then you lose all the people that didn't play the first one from buying the second one. Yeah, so you always got to appeal to new people, right? But younger Derek was like, my personality is like, no, I want like this group of characters I care about, and I just want to keep going through games with them. Like, I want to keep going on journeys and adventures with them. I don't want to just experience them one time. I want to see what keeps going on. Now, not just business wise, I could see how that could be stupid too. But this franchise gives us that.
Yeah.
So here I have been asking for like 20 plus years, and the franchise is like, Derek, I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm over here. And I'm like,
right. I have like 19 games that you can play. Come over here.
I'm like, yeah. You don't look good enough, so no, I'm not gonna. Right. But no,
get that extra A, and then we'll talk. How about that?
Yes, sure. You're too double A for. Yeah, I wish I was a snob like that. It's almost like I'm like, you're double A. Okay, I'm buying you.
That's the best JRPGs in my opinion are double A.
I think
maybe like Persona and Final Fantasy obviously being exceptions to the rule, but like the gems are outside.
Yeah, because they have to compensate,
when you
right?
Come to like,
do.
That was what I was gonna say. I think when you know that you can't sell people on looks alone, it's kind of like an ugly girl. She's gotta, in order to get a guy, you gotta build up your personality. You can't be like
That's true. If you're an ugly guy, sure, that goes both ways.
Shouldn't that just be the ugly guy?
Yeah. You gotta build up that personality. Yeah.
If you're unattractive, you've got to sell yourself by being a little bit more attractive with your personality. So I think some of these games, yes. So I think that's what a lot of these, double A or whatever indie type games, they're like, hey, we can't be as flashy and pretty as Final Fantasy. We don't have the budget, but what we do have is we know how to write stories. We know how to write characters, and we know how to bring them all together and make them interesting and hook you. And if that's what you can do, why wouldn't I give you a shot if that's what I'm asking for in JRPGs? So I'm definitely looking forward to diving into that franchise. I think I don't know. I think it's going to be fun to go through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did want to ask you before we move to Chronicle game, which is not Xenoblade, so I'm still disappointed with you, Dan.
He'll get there.
Is there anything, Kyle, that you do not do not like right now about this game?
Oh, that's maybe this is not a dislike. This is more of me not quite grasping exactly how like the orbiment system works, which has kind of been my elusiveness for all of these games. Is that like it's very involved. So they do have an autofill feature, and an orbiment is like a little diskette thing that you have. I think of like a data pad, and like you unlock orb slots, you add orbs. These orbs are your moves. They're the way that you react in battle. It might be extra HP. It's kind of like, think of like the sphere grid a little bit, but instead of like choosing where you're going, you just have a box of spheres and you're putting what you want like into the slot that you want. Yeah. So it's really, if anything, I wish the game explained that a little better. And that goes across all the games. So it's funny to say, hey, I wish this game had a little more tutorial when the first like 10 hours of this game is a tutorial. Y'all played the demo, or at least Dan did, so you know how like it was very tutorially. And that goes on for another like 4 hours or whatever. It just gets a little more interesting and involved. But yeah, I think it could explain the orbiment stuff just a little more clearer, or maybe even give you examples, like visual examples or something like that. It kind of just, hey, you have these slots, put stuff in it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, are these connected, or how are they feeding off each other?
Do I get bonuses if I do it a certain way?
And when I autofill it and see what it does, the picture gets a little clearer. I'm like, okay, well, I can move this around and move this. So it's like it is very user friendly still, even if you come in an idiot like me. So, that would be my small qualm with it.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe a YouTube video helps you out with that. Maybe there's always a YouTube video for everything. So.
Absolutely, and I'll do my research on it. But yeah, I'm definitely excited. I'm glad you came on and talked about it because that's definitely a game that I'm gonna jump into. I'm looking forward to it, and
much like you, I love rooting for underdogs, man. I love getting out there and telling people about a game that like you're probably like. Let's be real, you're probably ignoring. You see it on the PSN store, you're like, yeah, it looks like rip-off Tales or whatever. I think I'll play a Tales game if I want to play Tales. And it's more than that. It's a game. It's a long existing game with a really, really, really strong identity. So
yeah, and every single time, and they release them a lot. Almost every year they release a new game. Every time they would introduce a new game, I'd be like, every time. I'm not even just making it up. I'd be like, really wish I would have gotten into this. I really wish. So now that I'm finally there, where I'm like, just do it, dude. Just do it. And if you don't get into it, you don't get into it. But
there's so many other options if you don't get into it. Absolutely.
But once I start in the way I work, and you guys know I finish a lot of games. I track my stuff. I finish 40 to 50 games a year. That's not a flex. That's actually that makes me kind of a loser to a lot of people. But my point is that I don't just buy games and just play a lot of them and then move on. Like if I buy it and I invest my money, I start to go. It's like Persona 5, where I was like, dude, 7 years, bro. You gotta beat this game. It doesn't go away.
It's a principle at that point.
Yeah. So I've invested a good amount of money into this. I think this is definitely a franchise I'm gonna jump into and then start. You'll see me posting about how you guys gotta play it.
So excited! I'm just gonna be posting that head shaking, head nodding meme or whatever. Yeah.
Hell yeah! All right, Dan. Now to you. What is your main game, which apparently you beat it. So after you talk about this one, which means you can give me a lot of details without spoiling it, because I am going to be playing this game too. I think I'm 8 hours into it.
Oh. Okay.
But also, what is I'm sorry. After you talk about this game, if you're playing something currently, I also want you to bring that up. But let's go ahead and jump into, is it Eiyuden Chronicle or Eiyuden?
Let's all take turns saying this word.
Eiyuden Chronicle. Yeah, Eiyuden.
Eiyuden.
Actually, before I even started, I wanted to ask because I know Kyle had you restarted it, right?
Yeah. I'm a few hours into it. I'm not as far as Derek. I'm a little behind that, but I'm still playing this game. Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to gauge just to make sure I'm not going into too many specifics.
I think I'm right on the precipice of the big moment, where the story starts happening, if that makes sense.
Where I was mentioning, something kind of happens during one of the battles.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't gotten to the big battle yet, but I think that's
okay.
You know what I mean? Might be coming up.
Yeah, because that's where I had mentioned, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm in was that moment when that happened. So yeah, Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is what I'm playing right now. Here's the game. Here, I'll show the case. There you go.
Yeah, well, yours actually came through. I don't understand why. Maybe it's because I have
the background.
Yeah,
it's the background. Yeah, it's trying to fit it. But this was I love actually physically buying my games because I'm like an old man and I like having my actual physical
games. Let me ask you this before you
you
jump into the game, because you just talking about physical. Because you mentioned trading in your games. Do you trade in most of your games after you beat them, or do you keep more of your games than what you trade in?
I would say
what determines whether you trade this in, or if you're like, I'm keeping this, I have to own this game forever?
It's a couple of things. So Star Wars Jedi Survivor, I did really, really enjoy. But I was kind of I don't see myself going back for a second playthrough, and I don't think there was planned DLC, right? Not that I know of.
No,
I don't think so.
Right. Okay. So in that moment, it coupled with the fact that I was like, all right, you know what? I do want to go get Stellar Blade. So it was kind of like in the moment, I was like, I want to get.
Sometimes a game is worth enough. You know what I mean? Like I remember when I was buying physical, I'm like, this game's worth $35 right now.
Right.
Right. I'm
like,
getting some money off my new purchase.
Yeah, that's basically what happened to me. I got there and it like was more. I don't know if it was like a glitch or something, but it knocked like $35.
No, they do. They honestly, if you went to GameStop gets ripped on a lot. But I pay attention to their trade-in values and when they do specials. And if you pre-order, like if you trade in a game and then put it towards pre-ordering another game, they normally have percentage bonuses.
And they've been doing this for a while. In my 20s, when I was really broke, I funded my entire gaming habit off of trade-ins. So,
I don't know if you guys
agree that like it's fun to be like, yeah, what'd you get 3 cents for that? But like,
but
I
not
funded
even
a whole.
I mean, I worked at GameStop for like years, so I
managed one for 4 years.
Okay,
you both did.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you guys remember, like, because y'all have known me for like 10 years, but I used to post online all the time all my deals, like all my wheeling and dealing. I don't do that no more because I'm rich. But like,
you don't gotta hustle
I'm just
no
kidding.
more, yeah.
I'm just kidding. But I used to hustle bad. Like it was just like,
hey,
all right, buy this game for $5, trade it in for 12. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna buy 4 copies, and then they started blocking me from doing that stuff. But I was just curious what determines whether you trade in or not.
Yeah.
And like, is it just like, hey, if I buy a JRPG, I'm definitely keeping the game. The other question I was gonna ask. Let's use Star Wars as an example because you really liked it, but you were like, the trade-in value is worth it. Plus, I want Stellar Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever buy those games back at a cheaper rate? Because I like to own my stuff, so I always have to buy it back, even if I sell it.
Oh, is it right here?
But I try to buy it back cheaper, so I feel like I still
sense.
save.
Yeah, everything goes down to $5 at some point.
Well, technically for Christmas, but I had to have this again because I was like, I love this game so much. This is the game I'm always busting Tim's balls about as being the best From Software game. So I needed this again. So
guess who,
the things make their way back to the stable sometimes.
Yeah.
Guess who played that game all day today? And Tim and I were texting back and forth. I'm like, Tim, I'm playing Sekiro again, you piece of crap. Stop talking about this game. And I played it all day. And then when I went out to dinner with my daughter, my kids for my son's birthday, my daughter was like, I hear you when you're like yelling and talking to yourself.
Angry.
I was like, yeah, I know. I have this addiction to like really difficult games because I'm actually a really calm person now. So when I'm playing, like, if I play a Persona or something, you're not going to hear me like, what the fuck, this character did this. Like, I'm not going to get mad. I just play it, right? But when I play FromSoft games,
comes out.
It comes out, and I'm like addicted to them. So I just get in these moods where I'm like, Derek, you got to stay calm. But Sekiro, bro.
So, I mean, I think it's their hardest game still. I think it's their hardest.
Yeah.
It is. I just bought the Guardian Ape again, and he was ridiculous.
Dude, F that ape.
I've said this before, but it is the only game I've ever played where I literally didn't understand the language of the video game. I'm a dude.
It's like a rhythm
I
game.
hate this term. I hate it. So just hit me or whatever. I'm a hardcore gamer, man. Like I game.
Sure.
I've been gaming a long time. I've had a lifetime of gaming.
Absolutely.
I get what games are. I know what they are. I had no idea what this game wanted from me. And that made me respect it. I don't disdain it or anything like that. I'm just like, well, man, that game is developed on a whole another level that I like. It's great. It's great. I have so much reverence for that game.
The game is clearly it's designed in a way, and this is what Tim and I were talking about. He was just like, it's nothing like their other ones. Yes, there's similarities. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
But like, it's not designed like the other ones where I was talking about earlier. If I get stuck, even on like Dark Souls. So people would love to talk about like Elden Ring. I can go explore another place and then come back if I get stuck. Yeah, you can do that. That's super cool. Guess what you can do in Dark Souls and Bloodborne and all them? You can just repeat the same thing in the areas that you're good at, get buff, and then go fight that same boss and beat the hell out of him because you just power leveled yourself. Yes, you got good a little bit, but a lot of it is just like it's RPG mechanics. Like, just make yourself stronger by grinding. This game goes, yeah, go ahead and grind, bro. Dude, I played for 8 hours today. 8 hours. I couldn't even buy one of the skills. And there's some of them I've bought a lot already, keep in mind. But the cheapest one was 2. I haven't even gotten to 2. I'm always at 1, and then I fill the bar like halfway, and then I die, and I just keep losing. And then I went and looked at my character. My character literally has every single rot on him, so I only have a 5% chance of unseen aid, meaning 95% of the times I die, I lose most of my money and most of my experience. So I'm completely screwed right now because I can't even get rid of my rot. I don't even have the ability to get rid.
It punishes you really hard too, because like the game has, well, spoiler alert, multiple endings, and it all plays into the dragon rot and all of that. So like you're also being punished for dying a lot, tied into the story at the end with the dragon rot.
Very linear on how, yes, you can unlock new skills just like in Stellar Blade, but they're different skills in Stellar Blade. There's no like hold down L1, hit R1, and you thrust 80 billion times and knock the hell out of a boss. It's, little moves that you can do, but bosses can cancel them out. They can deflect you away. Like, the game is way more difficult. Like, some of the easier enemies, I'm killing them like they're nothing. But once I hit a boss, and I'm like, dude, I hit you 87 times, and I did this much damage to your bar, and you have 3 bars. Fuck off, dude. I hate you. That's what I said to it. I'm like, fuck you. You're stupid, and I hate you. But I love the game because there's other tactics to beating the bosses. But I got hooked again. I beat the Guardian Ape, and I'm now at the area where I'm gonna fight the 2 apes, and I really don't wanna.
I think I actually missed that before. I don't remember fighting them both, and then I remember I was watching a streamer, and I was like, dude, what? There's 2 apes?
You can bypass them, because I went and found Fighting Cowboys 100% walkthrough, and I found the video like right before where I am, and he goes past where the 2 apes are because he hadn't fought the first ape, and you can get to that area and then go to the next area, of the game that I can't get to now until I beat the double apes, and I'm like, I hate
because they're in a
Fighting
cave,
Cowboy.
right? The 2 apes. So like I don't know what I did, but
the next area is in that cave, but you have to go above them. But when I walk in the room, like when he walked in the room, there's no ape. When I walked in the room, there's an ape standing there like this, and he turns around, and I'm like, okay, he's headless. But anyways, Sekiro, we both love it. It's a very difficult game, but it's very addicting. And on my Xbox playthrough, I got all the way to the bad ending boss fight, where there's 2 bosses you have to fight back to back, and I fought them 5 times, and I went, I'm done. I hate double bosses.
Sure.
And then I tried to start my Xbox playthrough again today, and I was completely lost because I hadn't played the game in over a year, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm right here where the boss is. But then I was like, well, maybe I'll do other stuff. Well, because I chose to do the bad ending, I'm locked off all these other areas, like where you can upgrade your attack power. I can't do it because there's another area of the game that you have to get the 3rd piece of the mask in order to upgrade your attack power, and I can't get to it. So I was like, I'm done with this playthrough. I'm just going to go to my PC and start a new one. So anyways, I'm flying through. Yeah. Let's talk. Eiyuden Chronicle.
What was it? Eiyuden Chronicle. So basically what I was trying to get at is I love that I physically have a copy of it. Because
it's a cool cover too.
It is. It's got it like obviously they're in like the main 3 are in color, and then like you can see sort of like the gold like everybody else within the emblem of like all of the 100+ heroes in the game, because this game is a spiritual successor to Suikoden. And I'll get to that. I actually had some stuff I kind of like typed out just because like this was really important, because Suikoden is a series that's owned by Konami. And I know we know Konami, and for anybody that doesn't know, basically what everyone thinks about Konami is fuck Konami, all right?
Yeah, the best company ever, right? Oh, fuck. Oh,
well, absolutely. I want to do them because they're fantastic, and fuck them. They're a terrible company. But it seems like they're trying to like come back and be like, hey guys, we're like really sorry. It's like,
hey, you want this new Metal Gear Solid?
They're on their apology tour right now. They are.
Their apology tour. So this is a a spiritual successor. It was kickstarted back on July 2020. And let's see, the campaign opened on July 27, 2020. It reached its minimum goal of $510,000 in about 2 hours.
That's crazy.
Like it reached that goal in like 2 hours. Like basically everybody wanted more Suikoden.
Yeah, big fan.
Lots of people
wanted
fans. The game was backed by about 46,000 people, and it racked in $4.57 million. So to kind of gauge what that means is third most funded video game Kickstarter ever.
So what were the first two? Do you know the first Star Citizen doesn't count. Let's get real. That's a Ponzi scheme that everyone
also fell for. this is as of 4 years ago, because I think Sea of Stars is after. So I'm not taking that into account because I don't have the bullet point for that, because I was pulling this information from somebody that shared that 4 years ago. But yeah, at that time, third most funded video game on Kickstarter, most funded Kickstarter ever for an RPG video game, and most Japanese funding of any video game crowdfunding project ever. So like a really big deal in like.
It was breaking records before it was even conceived.
Yeah, exactly. And then just more recently on a more somber note, but I think at least for me, because once it's all said and done, when I finished the game, I really super enjoyed it.
Did you cry?
No, but they're definitely, without getting into too many details, there's some story stuff towards the end. There's some story.
Good. I like story stuff.
I mean, I only asked to make fun of you, but yeah.
No, not this. Other games have made me cry, but not this one. I feel like I have a little more difficulty getting all the way there with like pixelated games. I don't know why. I think it's just more like when the visuals are realistic, they just kind of like seems
the immersion helps.
Like, I was gonna say it definitely immerses you more when you like see their faces and like you actually see them getting sad or upset or whatever.
Exactly. But yeah, the writer and director of the Suikoden series, which then he started his own company, and they're the ones that made Eiyuden Chronicle. Yoshitaka Murayama, he passed away in February, so was it a couple months before the game came out?
I was gonna say, didn't he pass away like right before the game launched?
Yeah,
totally sucks. Like,
the game came out April 23rd, and he passed away on February. So that's really sad. He didn't get to see the fruits of his.
Which maybe that's I don't know. People have been so unfair about this game. Maybe he got to skip people misunderstanding what this game was. You
know? Kyle knows, and I've said this every time I've like kind of a little more like info drop here and there over our current gen episodes, but all of those reviews that are like in the 7s and below, fuck those people. They're all fucking dumb.
And 7s being on the high end make me really mad. Like that's like the best you're seeing out there. Maybe there are a couple 8s here and there, but like I feel it's a gravely misunderstood game.
Yeah.
What was the overall reason you think a lot of the
pacing, right? I think people were dogging on the pacing.
So that it's trying to lean too much into the nostalgia and feel too like much of an older game.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Old school stuff.
That maybe
that's what it was supposed to be.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
so that's
ding ding ding. Yeah, exactly.
But that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to
it's people grading something on what they think it should have been instead of grading it on the thing that it is.
Of what it is, what the quality.
One of my biggest.
What it is trying to do is be an old school game with modern. Like voice acting and some modern like ticks or whatever. But
I like that you were bringing up Daybreak, Kyle. I like that you brought that because they're kind of opposites, really. Like in like all these little different ways. So in that game, like it's very like kind of picky choosy of like when there is voice acting and stuff, and that can be, at least for me personally, I was kind of like, oh, that's a little disorienting because 1 minute they're talking and then they're not, but then like in the same conversation they're talking again and then they're not. In this game, all of the heroes that you recruit are voice acted. Every single one. 100 plus characters.
It's pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah. And some of the voices are kind of whatever. They're a little cheesy or they're a little grating depending on the character. But
that's real life and that's JRPGs.
But you also don't need to actually have that party member in your team, so that's okay.
You have 99 other people you can choose from.
Yeah. There's 120 altogether. And this includes people that can be in combat, the support role, and then the people that you recruit in your city. So when you get to that point in the game, there's a city mechanic, which freaking love that shit. One of my favorite things in RPGs, and I think it's something that more RPGs should have. I love that. Just give me a freaking town or a city, and I can pump money into it and level it up, and then you're selling better shit, and like your blacksmith can upgrade my weapons better. Like I freaking love that shit, dude. So more RPGs should have that. But yeah, basically the story centers around. So Noah is like the main character, but the three characters on the cover, there's also Sane and Marissa. So they're main characters too. But if you like had to pick one, it's definitely Noah. He's the main dude. And he basically in the beginning of the game he joins like this little kind of like mercenary group where they kind of go out and do missions and like help surrounding towns and people and whatever. I forget what the actual group is called. So it starts very
like it's some wall or whatever, because I thought I remember thinking of Game of Thrones. It's like some winter wall or something like that.
It was something kind of like simple. And the game story-wise starts very simple. It does take a little bit to get to that point that I was mentioning where there's like political intrigue going on. There's an ultimate big bad that's trying to like usurp power and like kind of be like, I want to like control everything and conquer everything. It's very like kind of almost Game of Thrones in that sense, where like there's all these like people trying to kind of like move stuff around, move pieces around and climb their way up to the top and be, you know, the big cheese of everything. Which just sounds kind of like whatever, but when you're actually playing the game and you get to that point in the story, it starts to become very interesting. It does take about, let's say 10 hours to get to that point. But up to that point, you're meeting, again, these main particular individuals that you're having in your party. And then when you get to that part where you have the town, you're doing the character recruiting element, which is very Suikoden. So if you've never played Suikoden, Derek, that's something that series had as well. They always called it the 108 stars, right? I think that's so you go through the game and you can recruit all these characters, but the tricky thing is you might miss certain characters if you're just
they could be like in a house that you've checked 100 times,
right?
And then suddenly one afternoon there's just a guy standing in there, and if you miss them that one time, it's over. You know, like, so that's how, you know, get a guide if you're OCD, I guess.
That's the main thing, which lends a little bit to my gripe, which I'll mention down the line. But yeah, it's very like you got to explore nooks and crannies and like look out. And to me, it's obvious, like when you're walking through a town, you see all the regular NPCs, and then you're like, all right, that guy sticks out like a sore thumb. I gotta go.
This guy looks like a main character.
He's got main character energy. Let me walk over to him. So the screen fades, and then a cutscene happens, and that character will speak. So you know this is someone that's going to be recruitable. But I think the story is, again, it does start a little slow, but I do think it becomes something very interesting. And it's not, like Kyle was saying with Daybreak, it's not where it's like world ending stuff. There's definitely like this guy wants to like conquer the world and like do bad things. And there is some bad things happening behind the scenes involving the lore of, there's like these ancient ruins from like some ancient civilization that they don't really dive into. So I don't know if this series continues, maybe that's something that they do eventually kind of like give you more information about, but it's very kind of like mysterious, and they allude to like very, you know, vague ways that there's these ruins, and then there's these like rune lenses that you can equip that give you your magic abilities. So that's equipping to do your magic abilities. And then
which I really like the combat, because I like the special moves, like the lens moves, and then I even like the gimmick part of the boss battles, which some of them were just like so old school, like retarded, that I was like, this is hilarious that this is in a modern game. But it's very like, it makes you feel like you're playing an older game. But I didn't look at that as a negative.
To me, that's even still unique though, because like, I mean, I think of a series like Final Fantasy, there isn't really environmental, like you're not interacting within the environment ever. It's just like your characters are there, they have their abilities, and you fight and you figure out weaknesses and so on and so forth. Like this one, yeah, they throw in at least occasionally here and there, hide behind this boulder or something, or there's a switch over there. If you hit the switch, it makes this thing happen that then does like takes damage off of the boss or something like that. So I thought that actually was really cool. I really dug that. The combat is like, you know, opposite of what Kyle was saying with Daybreak. It's not it doesn't have like crazy amounts of like depth and levels to it. It's a bit more simplistic, but that's okay. It's just it's harkening back to a simpler time of RPGs. The Suikoden series started on the PS1. Suikoden 1 and 2 were both on PS1, and then 3 was on PS2. But yeah, it gives you some layers where there's certain characters that you have in your party. You can do like combo attacks. So like the two main dudes there, Noah and Sang, if you have them in your party and you have a certain amount of SP, which you'll see at the bottom of like your, you know, when you have your health and all that, there's SP, you can have up to 5. I think if each one has 1 SP, you can do this combo attack. So then they will like attack everybody. It does an AoE attack.
Yeah.
So and that differs depending on who you have in your party.
Love combos, like you know, team up attacks. That's
exactly.
Good addition.
Yeah. And it's it's unique to whoever you have in your party, so they're all going to kind of do different things.
While you were talking, I booted up the game because I wanted to just see where I was at. Which kind of takes me back to our old days when I used to play games while you and Tim talk.
Yeah.
Like these guys are boring the shit out of me. Let me.
Hey, at least you're awake. At least you're awake.
I did fall asleep one of those times.
Just one.
I think one officially. I remember getting a text. Getting a text from Boss Tim like, "Hey, bro, you shouldn't do the podcast anymore if you're falling asleep."
You got spoken to by the CEO.
Yeah, I got in trouble. It says I'm hoist the alliance banner, find allies for the resistance. So I think I'm just in a recruiting phase. But I've checked off a good amount of missions. Like I've done.
So you're at like where like the town is, right? That you're going to be building up because you have the alliance. It's the new thing that you assemble.
Yes, it's it's to begin restoring the ruined fortress to use it as a base. Yeah. I just wanted to give you an idea where I was.
Like when I heard that there's like base building and Dark Cloud 2 style like city, you know, stuff or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, I'm buying this game on Switch.
Yeah, absolutely. That element is super fun. I do recommend, like Kyle said, with as far as like having a guide to look up characters. I for some reason just couldn't find the blacksmith, and then I was just like, screw it, I'm gonna start like using a guide to just find some. So like the blacksmith was somewhere super obvious, and I was really annoyed. So you use a guide to get like your blacksmith, your items vendor, your accessory vendor, your armor vendor, just so you get them out of the way.
That's where I'm at now. Is I would need a blacksmith for my fortress, correct?
Yeah, you might not. Like Kyle was saying, some characters you have to like hit a certain point where then they're available. So that blacksmith might not be there yet. You can go and check, and maybe they will be there. Yeah. And if they're not, then just wait till you get to the next like story moment. Because the game's like when you get to the fortress and they're like, all right, we're gonna like build up this fortress so we can create the alliance to fight the big bad empire. It kind of breaks up into sections. So basically it'll be like, all right, Noah, you got to go out there and recruit people because you're like one of these everyman that everybody can believe in. And like when you talk, they're like, yeah, like I'm inspired and I'm going to join the cause. So like that's what you do as Noah. You're going around, you're recruiting characters, and then there's the big like kind of like war fights, which apparently are very similar to the Suikoden series, which I forgot about because I actually didn't remember them in 3. But there's the turn-based combat that you normally do, and then there's actually like almost like RTS combat that's happening on a grid.
I did one of those. I did get to a battlefield where I had to move
her
forward.
Town, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Periel's, her town there. So yeah, that right there is really cool, and it was much simpler on Suikoden apparently. Tim said it was more of just like a rock paper scissors sort of thing. Like there, you're actually like moving the little icons, and you're trying to figure out maybe like placement. they also have like abilities that might like boost attack. So you want to like time like when you boost the attack at the right moment, or like if you boost the attack, it might also boost the other people beside you on the box to like the left or right of you. So then they're actually also getting that stat boost. So you kind of want everybody sort of near each other. But yeah, that element was just really cool because
I'm super into that. Yeah, I remember that from Suikoden as well. And like no one really does stuff like that, and I like it when a game's like, hey, here's something new. Here's a new way to approach like the combat in this game. And how often do those stuff come up? Would you say?
A few times. I'm trying to think. The amount of those battles that happen in the game are maybe like 6 to 8.
So they're safe for big moments, like big battles, big story moments or whatever. That's cool.
Which is what that moment was when I had first mentioned, like, so after the one that Derek's mentioning, which is like the tutorial first one, I think it's that second one that you go and do that's like a really important one, and some things go down and you're like, oh shit, like, okay, so like the Empire is like the bad guys, but this guy's like doing some stuff over here. And like then like that's where it kind of like frames everything, and like then you know who the real bad guy is. And then that's kind of where the Game of Thrones stuff is like, all right, well, we gotta like scramble and like we gotta recruit more people. So then that's when after you finish that battle, you kind of like retreat, and then Noah has to go recruit some more people because clearly they're like their numbers are like totally trounce your numbers. So you're like, we need more people, man. Like we can't beat these guys. So that's the back and forth of the story of like recruiting people and like getting a little more backstory about like what's going on with your group and the Empire, what they're doing. There's a little bit of sneaking around. There's a moment where actually your party splinters, which is actually really cool. So it's actually after that big battle where they do a little reconnaissance in this lab, and you find some stuff out there. You're like, oh shit, this is like really bad. This is like really bad stuff. And so it got even more interesting. And then it goes back to Noah and he's recruiting people. So
a couple of questions for you. One, if you can think of it, what was the coolest character that you would say you recruited and used?
There's your kind of traditional, and again, there's the main group that like does a lot of the dialogue. Most of the side characters, because again, there's 100+. They'll have like lines here and there, but they're not like having a bunch of lines. But just like aesthetically, there's just kind of like your drunken samurai guy. He just has the little jug, and he's got the samurai armor. You meet him very early on. I think it's
that's one of the first guys you can.
He's in the first town, right?
Yeah.
He's cool. Yeah.
He stayed. So he was in my party, and then I like switched him out for somebody else. But then when I was looking at the guy, they were like, he's like top tier. You just keep him the whole time. And I'm glad I put him in sooner rather than later because his attack strength is like absurd. So I definitely would recommend him. He's really cool. There's another character in the game like way down the line that's like. So it's like she's a magical girl, but she's not a she. She's like a he. Is a sorceress that like has lived for like hundreds of years apparently, but like kind of just like does experiments and some shit, and like is like, I'm a magical girl now, but like basically that character is like just God mode and like does insane damage. So yeah, like that character is just really cool because they're just really powerful. But like the main three I like the most, I would say. Just I think their characters are really well written. I think that when they have their moments together, they bounce off each other really well.
Were they in your party mostly too? Would you say?
Yeah. Well, there's moments where sometimes you can't have them in your party because it's moments where like but for the most part, you can have all three of them in your party. Apparently, Sang is the weakest of the three. So, like, I think a lot of people actually would have somebody else in his place. But in my head canon, I was like, I got to have the three in my party.
I feel like, or at least early game, Sang was actually pretty powerful. But I think it's because he was linking with Noah. And so they were both bouncing off each other, if I'm remembering correctly. I haven't played in a little while.
Yeah, the Marissa and Noah are definitely stronger. Like once you get further down the line than saying, but yeah, in my head, I was just like, I gotta have the three, and they're the three mains, so they gotta stay in the party. But yeah, I think the game's like I said, the game is trying to harken back to a simpler time of RPGs. It's trying to be an homage, a spiritual successor to something that just doesn't exist anymore. Konami's not making these at the moment. They're remastering or whatever 1 and 2, but like we haven't heard anything for a while. So this game was filling a void there that people really clearly wanted. And lots of people, tens of thousands of people, kickstarted this game. They backed it, and
yeah. I wonder if it ended up selling pretty good. I mean, I bought my copy.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering the same thing. Yeah, I'd have to check the data on that.
I'd also be curious. Obviously, not one person made this game, but with losing, your leader, the guy who created it, I wonder if that would derail ever creating another one.
Post-death, someone at the studio did say they if this game does well, they want to make sequels. Yeah.
They should, and I think they would be able to. Look, the first game was already paid for. I'm sure they had to pay some stuff, but it sounds like they got it funded. So I would imagine
46,000 people funded it. Like that's
if you already had the first one funded by people, and then you sold, even let's say you sold 500,000 copies, and you got $40 from every 500,000. Well, they wouldn't get 40. But after publisher fees, blah blah blah, you get $20 for 500,000 copies. That's $10 million.
The game is already paid for. It should just all be profit, I imagine.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So you have enough money to kickstart your second game already while still being able to pay your staff. So what I'm speculating is I think it's going to get a sequel, which I think will be pretty cool.
I think so too, and I think they'll add more modern. So I don't think they're gonna make it this is a brand new art. I think it's still always gonna be a throwback, but it's an opportunity to add maybe some more modern sensibilities too that might be appeasing to a bigger audience.
I think adding just like a little more to the combat would be nice. Just I don't know, something. Just adding a little extra.
They will. They're not gonna just keep it the exact
Eiyuden Chronicle always found out really interesting ways to add, because it was always the same combat system for the most part, but they always figured out to add one more onion layer.
You gotta beef it up a little bit. You gotta make some adjustments. So, last question for you on this one, since you did beat it, and I know how long to beat says. How long did it take you to beat this game?
Dude, I'd have to check the PlayStation because my save file says 99 hours. I did not take 99 hours to beat this game.
What would you guess you did?
Probably 40 to 50.
Okay, that's right around where how long to beat says. It says it's like a 45 hour.
Does it say 40? Okay. I thought it was said 35 for some reason.
Which isn't, again, I do like that a lot of these JRPGs are getting I'm going to say a little bit shorter. They're still long games, but they're not all 80 to 100 hour games.
Dude, 35 or 40 is a sweet spot for me. I think that's
you can tell where it needs to come in at. Story and feel like you're on a journey. Because to me, one of the most important parts of making a successful JRPG is, and maybe it's just my nostalgia, I have to feel like I'm on a journey, like a long journey with this group of characters. And if you were to make it like 15 to 20 hours, I'm not saying you couldn't do it. If you're a great writer, I'm sure you could. But I do feel like 40 to 50 hours is a good spot. I get to that place, and Persona 5 definitely hit it. I like the game. Don't get me wrong. I think I gave that one a 9 out of 10 too. But it did get very long where I was like, okay, some of this stuff, dude, can we just come on? At one point I even thought the game was like ending, and it was like, no, dude, you got like 10 hours left. I'm like, what? Yeah. What? Why are we still going? I don't understand.
I have 2 more dungeons left.
Yeah. So, I do feel like some games go a little too long, but I feel like more modern games are going, hey, we understand our audience. Plus, we're not 12 anymore. I don't know how your childhood was, but my mom and dad didn't buy me a gazillion games. So if I got one game, that was my game. And so being a 100-hour game was important, or making it a 100-hour game by replaying it was important. we don't need that as much now. Like, there's so many games that we buy. We don't need games to overstay their welcome. Like, I have a now playing section that I created on my Steam because I mainly play PC. And I right now, and this is after I had to take stuff out just because it was in there and I was like, I can't get to it. I currently right now have 9 games in my now playing, and 8 of them are RPGs.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And some of them just stay in there. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth has just stayed in there since launch. And I'm like, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get and I won't remove it. And I won't remove it because, well, I already beat the Like a Dragon earlier this year. So I was like, I'm going to go into Infinite Wealth. I'm just not doing it right now.
Gotta give a break. Yeah.
This game is in there. I just bought Game of Thrones on Steam for $15. I don't know if you guys remember the old Game of Thrones game, the RPG that's kind of like Knights of the Old Republic. I had to buy it before I'm afraid it's going to get like delisted or something.
Is that on Steam?
Yeah. It's probably
I always wanted to play it. I just never did. Yeah.
It's apparently, if you go watch reviews, and I remember this back from when it first came out because I bought it on the 360 or whatever. It has like a really good story, where the reviews like beat it down and give it like 5s and 6s. Like, it's so boring to play. Of
course it has a good story.
But I'm like, yeah, and they stick to like there's actual real characters from the books and the show and all that in the game. So, anyways, I bought that, and then
it's wishlisted. Thank you for the reminder.
Yes, and then I have the Legend of Heroes. I have Persona 3, and then I have Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. So I have a ton of games that I just keep in my now playing, and I just pick them off one by one. And point is there's just too many games. Like But and I did remove this one, but trust me, it's kind of like Persona 5. It stays. It's haunting me, so I'm gonna move it back into now playing eventually. But Tales, what was the last Tales that came out?
Arise,
Arisen or whatever. Is it Tales Arise?
Yeah, that is perpetually in my backlog too. Where I'm just like, I love that what I played. I gotta play it.
Yeah. That's one of them. It's eventually. I mark my words. It's gonna actually happen. It's always floating in my now playing. I always keep it installed. It's going to be a game that I'm pretty far into it. I just have to like lock in and be like, Derek, this is your Persona 5. Like, you're not allowed to move from this one. You have to do this.
Just remember, it has the best cliffs. Just keep the cliffs in mind.
Well, that's what keeps it installed. The cliffs.
The cliffs. So I just wanted to say 2 more things about Eiyuden.
Yeah.
Shame on me. I completely forgot. Yeah. Aside from the main characters, the actual best character in the game, I can't believe I forgot about him. Meldridge. He's like this character
later in the game.
It's around that battle that I mentioned. That's like the turning point.
Second battle.
Yeah. Okay. So you meet him in this city that's called Hashan, which is like basically like Japan. Like ancient Japan, which is really cool. And he's like this tactician, and he's just super smart. And the voice acting of that character is like awesome. He just like sounds cool, and he's just like wicked smart. And you're like, this guy's so cool. Like, I wish I could just like be as smart as this dude. So he's actually like the coolest character, Melvin. Nice. And then my only one gripe is definitely.
I was going to ask you that.
Use a guide if you want all of the characters, because. So I was doing some research actually earlier today, and I was like, I'm curious if there's a splinter of the story when something happens towards the end, and there is. And it's because I didn't have all the characters.
Oh, I'm
so mad about that.
How many characters did you end up getting?
How many? I think it was like around 110. I was like so close.
Yeah,
this is 120. There's 120. So, or maybe even more than that. I thought there was like 100, but then I saw it was like 120. So then when I was actually trying to like just count each individual, and I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. But then I was forgetting about like the characters that are like in the town, like the shops and stuff like that, and they don't show up on a menu. So I couldn't actually like physically count them on a list. I was counting the ones that you could put in your party and the support characters. So, But yeah, I recommend definitely use a guide. There's a character that pops up throughout the story who's just like, haha, I'm funny because like I should be dead, but I didn't just die there because I have weird luck. I'm so amazing. And she's like associated with Noah. So I don't know if you've bumped into her yet. But she's
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
So yeah. So basically, yeah, it use the guide if you want to get all the characters, and then once you have all of them up at a certain story point, and I won't be specific because then I'm just getting too spoilery. But yeah, basically something splinters off, and you do get some different events occur.
I was gonna ask you, did it alter the ending at all, or is it just more of like it's just hey, you got rewarded for doing this?
So it's not like I wouldn't say I got the bad ending. It's just something wasn't there.
Okay.
That would have been there if I had all the characters, is what I'll say.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I think you said enough to intrigue us to show the value without spoiling it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this game is great. I think any person out there that loves old RPGs of that era, the PS1 especially, like, please play this game. It's fantastic. It's, again, so much of it is voice acted. So many of those characters are voice acted, which, I mean, Guile and I have said this, like, holy shit, like, that's amazing. Like, that's such a gift.
Yeah,
like having
it's
all
incredible.
these characters, having all these characters, and like it's not even just those characters. It's in cutscenes where the villains are talking and they're voice acted. Like it's a great old school style RPG that's newer but feels old and nostalgic. So
I would say this, and I'm being serious. I'm not just saying it to be stupid. Like if I wasn't committed to Persona 3 and Legend of Heroes,
the 13 other RPGs,
I would.
There's an order.
I would get off this call and be like. In fact, I booted him. I was like, damn it.
I'm probably gonna get off and play it again. This happens every time we talk about this on any podcast. I'm like, yeah, I'll put a couple hours.
I want you guys to get to that battle that I'm talking about, because then it's like, oh, okay, so now the gears are turning and things are happening. Like that for me was like the switch flick, you know.
Yeah.
I always say JRPGs really don't start until like the 15th hour. You know what I mean? Like, that is almost 10, almost always true. So I always try and give every JRPG, and that's usually my breaking point. Is I get to 15 and almost everything I play, and I either fall off or I make a decision to keep going. So
yeah.
Well, you sold me on. Well, it was already in my now playing. I didn't just move it, but it will eventually get more attention. Again, I'm over 8 hours in. I didn't have a problem with what I played. I liked it. I wouldn't say it was like blowing me away, because I think if it was, I would have kept playing it. I was able to move on from it, but it was enjoyable enough that I was like, hey, this is still one on my radar that I've targeted, that I wanna definitely.
You also don't have the nostalgia that, like, say, Kyle and I do for PS1.
Well, and I think collectively, many reviewers did say those early hours are slow and rough. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just like there seems like there is a hump to get over. Yeah. But then it clicks and it holds on.
And one thing with me, I don't really have a problem with slow starts. Even though I play a lot of games, I don't usually jump off games quickly. It's normally like I have, obviously because I buy a lot of games, that's where something might get lost, is because maybe I bought 3 games and then I buy another 2 and I was committed to those 3, but I only got through 1 before the new 2 came out. That's when you'll see the transition, where maybe something gets lost. But like I said, I'm pretty good about coming back and be like, hey, no. This is still important to you. So this is one of those games. It's not going anywhere. There's some others on my now playing that I could see me going. Like, I didn't talk about it tonight, but I don't know if you guys saw this game called Kaku Ancient Seal. It's kind of like this open world adventure game that kind of gives you like Zelda vibes.
I think Tim's mentioned it. Tim's mentioned it a couple of times.
Okay.
It's super fun. I got it for $18. I was actually expecting it to be way worse than what it was, and when I played it, I was like, this is actually really fun. It looks good, and it makes me feel like gives me a little bit of that nostalgia, like I'm playing a Zelda game. It has that vibe to it. So that would be one that I could be like, hey, I have no emotional tie to it. I could probably drop that. But these JRPGs, I don't want to drop that. I promised you guys that we wouldn't go too long, so we've hit that right around where we want to jump off.
We collectively did that.
Well,
also,
we're talking about
RPGs, right?
Yeah, we're talking about stuff we care about. Like if I didn't care about what you guys are talking about, I'd be like, all right, let's move on a little bit quicker. Sure. But I do want to end on this. I know those 2 games were your main games. Well, you just completed this one, Dan. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you just real quick want to throw out, like a shout out, like a second or third game that you're playing? Maybe tell me your impressions of it. Maybe give me a little bit of a sales pitch. Anything else that you guys are playing outside of those 2 main games that you were playing?
Well, I like to do a shorter game right after like a longer game, just to kind of like a palate cleanser. I mentioned on the podcast that I started Rock Band again.
Okay. I remember when I was on the show, you bought a new guitar or whatever. Yeah.
I always threaten to like get on eBay and look at that and get this set up because I miss it. I miss playing Rock Band.
Yeah, it's just so fun, dude. Like I've just been like here and there buying like an extra song or 2. I got Duran Duran Reflex.
Sure. Yes, one would.
Did you get Bulls on Parade? Are you playing Bulls on Parade at all?
I swear there's a Rage Against the Machine song on there. I can't remember which one it is. And then Europe's Final Countdown, because that's just a fun song.
Yeah,
it's just a fun. But the main thing, it's a good song. It's a good song.
It is. I miss those little like keyboard riffs that we used to have.
Nobody Wants to Die. Have you seen anything on this? Nobody Wants to Die?
The Cyberpunk mystery game?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I've heard of this. Okay, yeah.
It's like a story-driven mystery game.
Yeah. So the little summary here, lose yourself in the dystopian world of New York 2329. Immortality comes at a price that someone has to pay. In an interactive noir story, so obviously, I'm guessing there's no combat. Lead the investigation using advanced technology as Detective James Cara, which is a weird name. But yeah, basically, it's like a murder mystery game, and it's pretty. It probably looks even better on PC because I'm playing on performance mode because it's doing that weird thing for me that it did with Rebirth, where like when I switch it to fidelity. Mm-hmm. 30 frames were kind of like the camera was kind of like that, like kind of weird jittery thing. So like I switched this to fidelity, it kind of did that for me too. So I was like, God damn it. So I put it on performance, nice, smooth, buttery camera. Still looks pretty, I think. Still looks really pretty. But yeah, it's
how much was it? Because it just came out.
It's like $25. It's on sale right now for like 10% off.
So it's probably regularly 30.
No, it's normally 25. The full price is 25. So it's not super expensive. It's also not super long. I think How Long to Beat has it at like 5.5 hours. So.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
I saw a full playthrough that was 4.5 hours.
Nice.
Yeah. It seems interesting. It's just the writing. There's a lot of so funny because like I don't have a problem with swearing, but like there's almost like some games actually like almost seem like too much that they're trying to swear. Like like
so a 14-year-old maybe wrote the
like a little bit of that. But it's also kind of supposed to be all like cool and noir and stuff. So like it has like that vibe where he's like he's sitting on like the edge of the roof and he's like the city and he's got the cigarette in his mouth kind of like vibe. But yeah, you basically have like this like thing around your arm that like you can like freeze time and then like you kind of do like you hold the triggers down and then like you rewind it into the exact spot that you need to rewind it to see like what happened in that moment of that crime.
Kind of like Cyberpunk. There's a part of the game in Cyberpunk where you would put the headset on and then you would replay the mystery.
Yeah, so a little bit like that. Yeah, exactly. And then in that first crime scene that you get to in the game, like which actually is pretty lengthy. It was like 20-30 minutes. And like really dissecting the whole scene and like figuring things out. And then you go back to your apartment and you have like the evidence that you plop down on like this like hexagon grid on the ground. and like you're kind of dragging stuff on top of other things to try to connect them to be like, oh, so like the person was murdered. Why was he
like
murdered?
Alan Wake 2's like storyboard, like as you're getting clues, like you're connecting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I like that.
And then the dialogue's like, oh, these things are connected, blah blah blah, because you have like a handler that you're like talking to, and like there's a back and forth there. They don't fully trust each other because you're like the loose cannon, you know what I mean? So she's like, oh, you're a loose cannon. So it's interesting. It's slightly a rough around the edges, but I'm really early on, so but yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna finish it. It's only like 5.5 hours, so
yeah, play it. I would say if you're in the mood for like a good mystery game, now it's not super short. Actually, I feel like it goes too long. But if you want a good mystery game or mysteries, because it has multiple ones, uh, I highly, highly recommend Banishers: Ghosts of New
That
England.
is like the game that's like below.
Tim has also been talking about
that. Like that is the game. I'm like gonna start that, and I'll start something else. I'm like, God dang it, I was supposed to get the Banishers. You know,
I'm like
really
3/4 through it, and not only is the main plot good and the two characters, the two protagonists of the game, actually interesting and good, but there's each like sub story you do is a mystery, and they're all extremely interesting. In fact, that's part of my frustration is I want to do them all, which I do know just from watching. He didn't spoil it or anything, but when Fighting Cowboy was starting his walkthrough, this is before I bought the game, when he was starting like the promotional videos and stuff like that, he's like, yeah, I already beat this game, but I didn't do enough of the side quests that I didn't get the ending I wanted. So he was essentially telling me before I play it, Derek, if you want to not be frustrated, you should do everything. So I was trying to do every side quest, and they're all interesting. And the combat's decent.
But it's not a short game, right? So.
But it's not a short game. It like keeps going, and that's where I was like, okay, guys, seriously, you're dragging a little bit.
Strange dudes. I'm pretty sure it's from the Life of Strange.
Yeah. But I was telling you, like when you're in the mood for a longer game, but if you like murder mysteries, and I know you like good stories and good characters.
Oh yeah.
That to me is a Dan game. Like I think you would be like, oh, I really like the story. I really like the characters. That type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That one does look interesting.
All right, we lost Kyle. I was gonna ask him if there was another game. Are
you? I mean, I know you had a
the
list.
Only thing, stuff. I think the only thing that I've only played a little bit of it that I'll just share real quick, and then we'll end on Kyle. Is I did put a little more time in Flintlock. When I first booted it up, I wasn't completely sold on it. I mean, I was excited for the game because of who made it, and I just thought it looked interesting. And I heard you guys on your show comparing it to another game I love, Forspoken. And as far as you guys were making fun of how bad the Forspoken characters are. Now, I will say I disagree with I disagree with Kyle on everything with Forspoken, but I disagree with Dan on one thing. You didn't like the dude who talks to the chick. I ended up, because I beat the game, I ended up liking him.
Yeah, I mean, you spent more time with it, so, you know.
Yeah, I mean, did he say some annoying things? Yes, but he wasn't the annoying part. It was more how she interacted. So when I started playing Flintlock, and I had already heard you guys started talking about that game, so I went into it and I was like, let me pay attention to like the main character, and then is it Aneki or forget his name?
Is it Anki?
Inky. Yeah. And then I started listening to it. When I booted it up, I had just gotten to where you meet Inky, and he hadn't talked to me yet. So when I booted it up today, he started talking, and I was like, ooh. Yeah, now this is how you do a god character who's going to be around me talking to me. He's got a great voice.
I think it was more that. I think it was more the quality of the voice. Like the Cuff voice reminded me of Jarvis a bit, and it's like, so it's
the
like
Cuff guy is an actual guy
from the Marvel.
But he's been in other games. He's like a comedian. I'm forgetting who he is. He's been in other games, and his
voice sounded very familiar. Yeah,
you would know who he is if you looked him up, because he's like a comedian, and his whole like comedy is being a dick.
Sure.
So it's kind of like the main dude from Community, Mikhail or whatever. Like his whole comedy, his whole comedy is just being an asshole to you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that guy is. So that's kind of what he's doing. And since she's such an unlikable character, the fact that he's making fun of her and pissing her off even more made me like him more, because I'm like, you're saying everything I want to say to her.
Like,
she's so freaking annoying. But what I did want to say is the Flintlock character, she seems cool. She's not annoying.
Right.
Like whatever her name is from.
She's also not overly chatty, you know. Like
she's more
woman of purpose.
I'm gonna get revenge, and that's it. You know, that type of thing. I like the interaction she had with him. Like immediately, she's like, "I hate your kind." You know,
which makes sense, right? So, but then she's just like, "Hey, like I guess we gotta work together. We gotta figure this out." So.
But I started unlocking a few things, and I was like, okay, because I meant this. I was at first, because I paid for this game. I didn't play it on Game Pass, and I was like, I shouldn't have bought this game. I already have enough games, and this is not gonna hook me. And then I kept playing, and I started unlocking some of the special abilities, and I got to I don't know if you guys got to like the town hub, where you unlock your ability to upgrade and all that stuff, and it's like a city, and it was like I was like, wait. This is super cool. This is pretty freaking cool. Like, all right, now I'm sold. So I wanted to give that game a shout out, because I think that's going to be better than I thought it was. I still think it's going to ultimately be a 7. So I'm not talking that it's going to be a masterpiece or no. I think it's just going to be a little bit more fun than I thought originally it was going to be. And I definitely like the characters in this game more than like using as an example Forspoken, which kind of has that similar setup where it's this female protagonist who's younger, and then you have this male counterpart who's like hanging out with her, telling like her guide or her god.
Yeah, the old wise man.
Yeah, and so it's got a similar setup, but the difference is, and this is where I agree with all of you guys on the show, they're likable in Flintlock. Forspoken, not likable. It is annoying, and the only reason I liked it, and I again, I get why you guys don't like the game. I played through it. I unlocked all the abilities. The game is actually fun to play. Does it have like boring things about it? Yeah. I mean, I remember making the jokes about the side quest in the beginning with like the sheep.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Well, guys, why did you even put that in the game? Why did you even put that in the game?
It doesn't even. Never mind. Don't get me
started. I'm not even gonna.
All right, but anyways, that was my shout out game. Kyle, you walked away. I don't know if you heard me. I just wanted to end the show on like anything that you're playing that's not Trails. Anything.
I brought it up right before we started the show, and I won't take long because I don't have a lot to say about it. But I did start that new MMORPG, Throne and Liberty. It's in beta right now. I think it's in beta.
Is it a free to play?
I think it's gonna be $40 when it comes out. $40, and here's where I'm gonna start to lose everybody. $40 with battle passes also.
Ooh.
So it wants you to pay money, and then it wants you to pay more money. Maybe the battle passes end up being free. I don't really know what the pricing structure is gonna be. It is a straight fantasy game. I will say the immediate hook is the art design in this game is fantastic. Like when you go into what Todd Howard likes to call the out of the gate moment or out of the sewer moment or whatever it's called, through the door moment, whatever it's called. Like when you see the world for the first time, like you see this giant flying whale with like algae and stuff all over it. It's like in a giant tree in the background. It's like Elden Ring, but like nice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not goth emo Elden Ring. It just had a lot of like, whoa, look at that over there. It's a giant tree with all this stuff flying. It was just cool to look at, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think an MMO, its most important value is, do you want to be in that world? Sure. I don't know what's going on with the story. A lot of nonsense, you know, immediately. I was skipping around too because, you know, it's just a beta. You're not going to keep your character. So it's like, I'm not going to get invested in what's going on with all this stuff. But people are speaking really highly of this game. I don't know if it's deserving of all the high stuff. I'm only a couple hours in, but like people are, this is not the next WoW. You know what I mean? Yeah. If anything, this is going to really appeal to that like Black Desert crowd. That that, what is it? Is it a Korean MMO or is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Chinese. I forget what it is, but well loved, but like by a certain type of MMO lover. So it is more actiony, So it's not like WoW, where you're kind of standing there and like auto hitting while you're waiting for your cooldowns to go. You're interacting, you're dodging, you're blocking, you're parrying. There are cooldown skills and stuff like that. There's a lot of skills. You choose 2 different weapons at the top of the game. So it's kind of like you choose 2 for 2 different classes, so you don't really have to like pick one. You're doing 2. The upgrading system seems a little weird, but MMOs are like that. You don't really have a full picture at the very beginning of it. I think it's competent. I think it's a good looking game. I think the graphics are actually pretty good. I don't know if it's going to have that staying factor though. But people are finding it's very popular during this beta, so maybe it's bigger than I think it is. But
so I think it's, and I could be wrong, but I looked it up in Steam. I think it's free to play, but I think you have to pay $40 for early access.
Oh,
okay.
But
I think when
you might be right about that.
But I think if it's a full launch, I think once it full launches, it might be free to play. That's what I'm guessing.
That is. I think in this market, you have to go that route.
Yeah, so I think if you want to play it early, like full release September, like early access release, I should say, September, you pay the $40. If you want to wait until the full release, because when I look it up, it says free. And then
that's awesome.
When you click on the actual game, it'll say early access $40.
I gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. That's a good caveat. No, I think that's a way. I think my thoughts on this game have gone up a little bit then, because it doesn't even feel like you're not getting bombarded like with ads. Like we were just talking about this last episode, where there was a lot. There's just like when you play a free to play game like First Descendants, like it is just oppressive how much it wants you to like buy their currency or do this or do whatever. And like, your Warframes are like that. Any free to play game is like that. That's just the model, This game just feels like an MMO. And if you want to get early access, great. Maybe the battle passes are going to cost something as well, that's fine. Even Helldivers, you paid $40 to get in the door, and then they sold you those war bonds, which are just battle passes. After you purchase the game. So I don't think that's the route to go. I think that's a really uphill battle to climb for a new IP. But if you like MMOs, I play almost every MMO that comes out. I dabble. I don't like commit to a lot of them. Very few I commit to, but I start all of them if I can. I just diddle them, yeah.
It could be, now that I look at it, though, I know it said free, but it's Amazon Games, and they made New World, and New World is a $40 game. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is a $40.
It might be. Is it the same studio?
I don't think New World, it's Amazon Games.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know it was Oh, okay, great. Okay.
So that's just what they do. They make MMOs.
Plot twist.
They make $40
I upset
MMOs.
people again. They're like, it's actually $40. Again, it keeps saying free September 7th, 2024, but when I click on it, it does say $40. So maybe they don't know what it is.
Maybe they're feeling environments, Kyle? Yeah.
Or
wait, say again?
Is there just destructible environments in this, or?
All the destructible environments I've seen were scripted.
Okay, so I must be. I thought that this was I was thinking maybe of something else that looked like this.
Maybe. I mean, I'm only a couple hours. Maybe there's like things in the game that, but I haven't witnessed anything that was like reactive, destructibility so far.
Yeah. I might be thinking of something else.
It does look super cool, and
it's a cool looking game. Yeah, yeah.
Look at here. Welcome to Throne and Liberty, a free-to-play multi-platform MMO.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think it being free-to-play, like, the $40 price tag really put me off, so this is good news.
Yeah. Well, that's why I never played A New World. I was actually interested in
I'm really
interested
World,
in
playing that game, yeah.
But the fact that they put it at $40, and even when it goes on sale for $20, I'm like, I'm not investing my money in you.
If it comes to when it comes to console, I might check it out just because I've been through the looking glass on it for a while. But like,
they come in
people
the
don't love that game either. Like, it's competent, but like, no one's saying it's the next WoW or anything. Like that.
It worked for Final Fantasy 14, but that's a whole different.
People are comparing this game. I saw a lot on the boards. This Throne and Liberty game to Guild Wars 2. I've seen a lot of parallels to that.
I know people like those.
Guild Wars is good. I like Guild Wars.
All right, well, that's coming out in September, and it does look like it is actually officially a free-to-play game. I mean, it's a looker when I look at it, but I'll be honest, I'm not a big MMO guy, but one thing MMOs, a lot of them do, is they know how to make amazing looking trailers to really try to hook you.
Yeah.
And then when I actually get in a lot of their games, I'm like, this isn't that great looking.
Yeah,
this is not what you sold me on.
It's more of like the communal, like This game is kind of flashy though. There is a nice combat system to it.
I booted up.
So is Black Desert though.
So yeah, that's actually a really good looking game.
MMO, you know?
Black Desert is actually a really good looking game. I think Rob was trying to get me to play it, and I own it. I think I got it in one of my Humble bundles, but again, it's really hard. If your name's not Destiny,
and it is not user friendly, man. That game is not welcoming to new people.
No. If your name's not Destiny, I'm probably not going to play you for more than a few hours. Same thing with we talked about it online. First Descendant, I liked it at first, and then once I hit the 5-hour mark, I was like, no, I get what you guys are, and I think your mission structure is god awful.
It's so bad,
terrible.
There is no mission structure. It's go here and shoot things.
Dumb. Yeah.
And go here and shoot things, and then go there and shoot. It's
there's
just no
to it.
Variety at all.
And then talk to this guy who has a dumb voice.
Who's talking about nonsense. Like the game story is so nonsense. Oh God, that game is really something.
So gameplay is still pretty cool, and it is a looker, but outside of that, it's very shallow, and they definitely didn't try on anything else. They just wanted to make a good-looking game that played pretty well.
Warframe, which maybe you did, but Warframe exists too, and it's very strong and has a very strong community. So,
but in the world, for me, that's I know it's third person, Destiny's first person, but it's still like a MMO light type shooter.
Destiny's an MMO.
You're not gonna beat Destiny.
You're not breaking into that arena. I agree.
Not for me. All right, guys. I absolutely loved having you guys on the show. I think this was a great show. I loved the games that we talked about. I'm going to definitely. I started Trails Through Daybreak actually last night, and then fell asleep because I was that exhausted as I was playing it. Not because the game's boring.
It's boring. It's a boring game.
I actually thought Van was pretty funny.
Van is so cool. I love when I immediately love a main character. Like
the way he was talking to that chick.
Another Final Fantasy, where you're like, I immediately don't like you.
But then he got really pumped about that restaurant or whatever. He's like, oh my God, you have that thing.
Sweet. I love it because he's kind of a badass, but he's got a sweet tooth. I just love quirky. He's so cool, man. I like him a lot.
Yeah. One minute he's being an asshole, and next minute he's like, "Oh, you brought me some food? All right, we're friends now." Yeah. So I'm looking forward to playing those games, and I hope to have you guys on in the future. Kyle, I got to have you on because we didn't even talk about Like a Dragon. But wait until
I want to talk about Like a Dragon and Persona with you. I gotta have it. I gotta have those combos.
Well, let me beat Persona 3. It's gonna happen. I'm 20 hours in.
I'm pretty far in it too, so maybe we both beat that and reconvene.
Yeah, keep me in the loop when you finish it. I'll have you on. We can talk Persona 3, 5, and then obviously if you beat 4, I would love to hear more about 4 because I think they're gonna remake that one.
I've beaten all of them at this point. So, well, not 1 and 2 because I'm not crazy, but I've beaten 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah.
And Dan, you are allowed to come on when you play Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Other than that, you
I have
are
the first one on
Switch.
I got that definitive edition.
Bro, play it.
So good.
The first one's really good too.
I also have 13 RPG.
Hit or miss.
I still need to. I have what is it? The Star Ocean second story on my backlog. I freaking still have that.
That one's on there.
I'm in 20 hours into that and just loving it, but can't find time to play it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that one too. That one's actually one I did move. I removed that from now playing because I was like, I got to get rid of something. So
something's got to give.
It'll come back someday. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And again, I hope to have you on in the future. Have a good night.